Welcome to the podcast that absolutely no one asked for, no one demanded, and our numbers reflected. This is Raul Marquez is Punchy with Lupe Contreras. I am your host. We want to remind you we are doing this, as lawyers would say, pro bono. We're doing this absolutely free because we don't have enough followers to monetize our content quite yet. But we do encourage you to go to YouTube, go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts. At Punchy Show is what you're looking for. Like and subscribe. We give you the best in boxing coverage, just enough to let you know what's going on, and just enough to keep it entertaining, just enough to make it worth your while. And let me introduce the guy who gives just enough to be part of this podcast. Doesn't put in a whole lot of effort. The one and only 1992 U.S. Olympian, former IBF Super Welterweight World Champion, former Showtime broadcaster, and the guy who had a week off, unlike me this weekend, the one and only Raul El Diamante Marquez. How are you, sir?
Doing great, Lupina. Doing great. Celebrated Liam's birthday every day, man. Lucky kid, man. His birthday was last Thursday, and then we celebrated Thursday. Friday we were at Benihana's. Saturday we celebrated again. Yesterday, Sunday we celebrated with his baseball team. So it was all every day was a birthday for Liam. So that was my weekend.
That
How
was
was
quite the
yours, by the way?
celebration, man.
How
Quite the
was yours,
celebration.
by the way?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. Let me go back to Liam's birthday. Jesus only gets one day. Liam got like what, three
You
or
saw
four?
that? Yeah, man.
Yeah,
You
he
got
got
like
three
three
or
or four,
four.
man. So
He was at Benihana's. He was eating ice cream. He was at a pool party.
yeah,
He had it really
everywhere.
going on. Thank you for asking about my weekend. It was a busy one.
Yeah.
I was disappearing to various places. I was in Wichita for the fight we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. That went pretty. The travel part of it went pretty easily. I got there. I actually had to fly back.
Right.
Flew back at about 6 o'clock in the morning, so we were in the lobby at like 4:20. I got to work with a gentleman who, unlike us, has a very successful podcast, Gabriel Rosado. You know,
Oh,
uh,
okay. They're doing
super
good,
middleweight
huh?
contender. Yeah, cool guy. We had a little bit of an awkward moment. We were in the car after the show,
Right.
and we're driving back, and we started complaining about how bad our Uber drivers have been lately. I mean, we're just being as disrespectful as possible. And then Gabe realizes we are in an Uber driving back to the hotel, and we're talking shit about Uber drivers the whole time.
Oh
So
man, what
so we
happened?
look up, so we look up, and the guy driving has this look on his face. He's like, "I'm not like that," and we're like, "No, man, we're sorry. We didn't mean to be disrespectful. We
All
just
right.
we just had some really bad Uber drivers of late." But anyway, so that was a fun moment. So I flew back to Houston, landed here probably 8ish. Immediately went across the airport, got on another plane, headed over to Little Rock. Went to do the debut show for Destin Champions Promotions. They did a great job. Um, I
Was
kind of got
Jermaine Taylor
hassled.
there by any chance? Jermaine Taylor,
Jermaine
remember?
Taylor was not there. No, Jermaine
Oh
Taylor was
man.
not there. But he is the name that everybody recognizes. When I would bring up boxing, when people were asking me
Yeah.
what I was there for, like at the airport or whatever,
Yeah.
um, I would mention Jermaine Taylor. They knew him. They knew him right away. That was actually the last time I was in Little Rock, Arkansas. Was I think it was like December of 2005. It was Jermaine Taylor on the main event against William Joppy, and our boy
Mhm.
Paulie Malignaggi was like the co-feature. He fought on the undercard. But back to the commission. So it's a commission doesn't do boxing very often.
Right.
So the guy, the commissioner, he was giving me a really hard time. He's like, you got here just on time. I was about to call another announcer, and I said, look, man, he was more concerned with the fact that if I had paid the $20 licensing fee,
Right.
depending on what state you're in, they require you to get a license, which it really doesn't make any sense. It's just a way of
Yeah.
getting tax revenue. So he's
Right.
like, yeah, we don't see your license, and I show him the email that I have on my phone. It's clearly from the commission, and I tell him, look, man, I'm more than qualified. I've done this, I've done that. I did the Wilder show last night. Well, I don't really care about that, blah blah. And I was just like, oh my god, this guy is killing me. He cared more about those $20, and I'm showing him on my phone the
Right.
receipt that I've paid the $20, and he couldn't give less of a rat's ass if he possibly could. But that
He
was
was
my
just
weekend.
trying
We
to do
did
his
that
job.
show.
He was just trying to do his job. That's it.
He was trying to do his job, but he was doing it very poorly. I mean, you you should see that I'm showing you the email that I paid it. If it's not showing up on your computer, there's obviously some sort of glitch. You're really going to not let me do the show because uh, it's not showing up on your computer database. Anyway, I thought he could have handled it better, but the show went well. Flew out yesterday. Now, yesterday was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I
We
bet.
we took off on time. We landed on time, but as we're landing, a lightning storm hits Houston, and we're literally a few feet away from our gate. But we can't go to the gate because, according to the airport rules, the baggage handlers cannot come out if there's lightning. So if there's a lightning strike within 3 miles, they have to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If there is another lightning strike within those 10 minutes, the clock resets and they have to wait
Man.
another 10 minutes. So we're sitting on the airport and the pilot occasionally has to move the plane. We sat on the airport for on the airplane on the tarmac for 2.5 hours, Diamante.
So you're telling me those 10 minutes became 2.5 hours, basically,
Those
right?
10 minutes
Yeah.
became 2.5 hours. And it was
Man.
one of those deals where, everybody's just sitting there and everybody's trying to be as cool as they can. But it's after a while, you're just like, oh my God. And then there was these two ladies. I don't know if you realize, but this weekend there was like a big series of Beyonce concerts here in Houston.
I
So
had
there
no
was these
idea.
these there was these two women next to me. They were on their way to go see Beyonce. So
Right.
they were afraid they were going to miss the concert. I mean, they were going to make it in plenty of time. They had their cute little outfits on. They had their little cowboy Carter hats. They
Uh-huh.
were all set. They were all ready to go, but they were panicking the entire time. But we finally got off the plane. We get to the baggage claim, get our stuff, and then the thing just continues. I get to you make those reservations at the airport as well, right? Because traffic has been so bad and parking has been
Right.
so bad.
Yeah, for the
So my
parking. Yeah.
yeah, my reservation wasn't working when I went in, so I just pulled a ticket and I go to the booth and I'm telling the lady, "Look, my reservation didn't work. I've already paid." And she's like, "Well, can you pull up your email of your original reservation?" And I can't find the email. And there's like 3 or 4 cars behind me, and I tell the lady,
Oh my God.
I tell the lady, "Hey, just charge me what's on the ticket." And she's like, "Oh no, baby, I can't let you do that." And I was like, "Ma'am, really, it's fine. I just want to get out of here. I want to go
Right.
home. Just charge me." And she's like, "Oh no, we're gonna work this out." And I was just like, and I felt bad because I kind of snapped on the lady. I said, "Look, man, it's not what you
Lupina, you
want.
snapped. Come on, man. You never do
You you
stuff
know
like
I'm
that.
you know I'm usually pretty cool." I
Yeah,
said,
you're pretty
I said,
calm. Yeah.
I said, "Look, ma'am, it's not what you want. It's what I want. Just charge me what I have to pay. I just want to get home." So the poor lady gives me a bad look. I still feel bad about that. She was trying to be cool, but I just
Maybe
wanted to
she'll.
get the
Did you
hell
tell
out
her
of there.
about the podcast? Tell her to like and subscribe. Maybe she'll.
No, she was probably gonna put a thumbs down on the podcast. So I thought I'd just stay away from that. But that's about it, man. Anything you want to add about the weekend? I mean, you
No.
were
Oh, you know
home.
what?
Some of us had to hustle. Some of us had to
Hey,
hustle, but you
no,
were
I
home.
didn't. I didn't. I mean, for me, it was just celebrating the birthdays, man. But I did find out before we lose one fan. Before we lose one fan, and I needed send out a shout out to him, Baby Chris. I found out that he's one of our biggest fans, Lupina. You know
Baby
Baby Chris.
Chris, Baby
He
Manson,
watches. Yeah, Baby Manson. Yeah, he
Baby Manson.
watches.
Wow, I didn't
He
realize that.
watches our podcast on the
Has he
big screen
subscribed though? Has he
TV.
liked and he has subscribed?
Yes, he watches our podcast on the big screen TV. He hooks
Oh
it up. I
wow.
found that out. I didn't know.
Hi,
So
Baby
big shout out
Chris.
to Baby Chris. You gotta talk about him, bro, because he might unsubscribe us. So I found out that he's one of our biggest fans.
Why are we still calling him Baby Chris? He has like facial hair and
To
pubes.
me, he's 16 years old and he's always gonna be Baby Chris, bro.
Well, he'll always be Baby
My
Manson. So
nephew,
we
by the way.
appreciate that. Along with
Yeah.
him, by the way, everyone else, we don't want to be the best kept secret in podcasting. We want to be like Gabe Rosado. We want to be like all the other guys
Hey,
who are
by the
actually
way, did
making
you
money.
take it? Did you tell Gabriel Rosado or like and subscribe?
I
Check us
I
out.
told him about the podcast, but he just he had other things going on. He was he a lot of people recognize him from the Creed movie. You know that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he said he went to Chili's. The guy was recognizing him for the Creed movie. He said the guy actually took a picture with him. Well, he had
Oh,
like the fork in his mouth, and the guy wants a
yeah.
selfie
What wasn't
outside.
Benavides' brother, the Jose Benavides, wasn't he in that movie too, or no? He
I
was
don't
one
know.
of
I've actually never seen the movie. I'm not a fan of
okay.
boxing movies.
Yeah,
Boxing movies, they're so fake. The action is like
right.
and it's like, oh, the
That's
ref would
too
have stopped the
much.
fight. It's
Yeah,
too much. It's too much. But
yeah.
anyway, I've been in one boxing movie, right?
Uh which one was it, Lupe? I know you
The
told
movie
me, I
was
mean,
called yeah.
you did
The
tell me.
movie was called Love Ranch. It was with Joe Pesci,
Yes, all
Helen
the
Mirren,
wait, that's what we talked
Academy
about Joe
Award winning
Pesci.
director. Yeah, with Joe Pesci It went
He made
straight to
everybody.
video.
He made
Nobody
everybody go
saw it.
home. He made everybody go home. You told me the
He made
story,
everybody go home because his tummy was hurting, his little pancita was hurting. So he
and
went home. But yeah, nobody saw the movie. I think I actually got a copy of it. It was like at the dollar bin of Blockbuster Video when Blockbuster Video was still around. But if you ever want to borrow, do you have a DVD player?
I do.
Okay, I'll let you borrow. You can check it out. You can see
I
your
want to
boy on
see. I
there.
want to
But
see your. I want to see your acting skills, bro. But
oh,
remember,
I
we
was
talked about. Hey, we talked about Joe Pesci because he's the star of the show, like me. Remember, we talked. I'm Joe
yeah,
Pesci.
and you guys have the same attitude. You just
There you
show
go.
up, give a half-ass effort and take credit for the entire show. But like I said, like and subscribe. It is at Punchy Show, YouTube, Apple Podcast, as well as Spotify. There's thunder going off. Here come my dogs, man. They're little sissies, so they're afraid of
Well,
thunder. They're
I might
coming over
have
here. But
my.
anyway,
You have dogs. I have kids, so might have Alina and Liam come over here too, because they're scared of thunder too, bro.
they're scared of thunder as well. Okay, they're sitting
Yeah.
they're sitting next to me right now. But anyway, enough with our mundane lives. Let's move on to the part of the show that we like to call the main events. And we kick off the main event with the one show that we were referring to, the one I did up there in Wichita, Kansas. It was the return of the Bronze Bomber, the most feared puncher, some would say, in heavyweight boxing history.
Yeah.
The
No.
Bronze
Yeah.
Bomber. He took on Terrell Herndon. What were your thoughts, man? What did you see from him? Did you get to see enough? Was there anything you
I
could
saw.
really gauge from what you saw?
I saw a little bit of it, highlights. But hey, look, he hadn't fought in about a year. I guess Wilder had been off for about a year. He is 39 years of age. Uh, he fought the right guy. He fought the right guy. Wilder had lost four of his last five fights, and Herndon was there to give him rounds. He wasn't there to really win. I felt like he was there to survive. So I don't think Wilder gave the fans what he really wanted to give them, man. Because remember, when he used to land that big right hand, he used to like paralyze fighters, just like knock them out, like flat out. And Herndon wasn't there for that. Like he was in the survival mode. He didn't take any risks. But at the end of the day, hey, look, he got the win. Obviously, Wilder, that's what he was looking for. He got some good work in. I think he stopped him in the seventh round, and he moves forward. I think you know, he wants to fight. I mean, he's 39 years old. I mean, there was always talk about him and AJ fighting Anthony Joshua. I think that's really the fight that is probably going to be made. Maybe from what I hear in 2026, I hear Wilder is going to fight one more fight before the year's over, and it's not going to be here in the States. It might be overseas. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see Wilder and Anthony Joshua fight next year, Lupina.
It was one of those things where you saw a Wilder who I wouldn't call him tentative, but there was something that just wasn't. There was something missing about the old Wilder. He wasn't as
Yeah,
aggressive as he typically was. Obviously he's had several losses, big
yeah.
devastating losses against Fury. He had the big knockout coming off against Zheli Zhang. So
Hmm.
he looked like a guy that I don't know if it was something that they worked on camp, or they just wanted him to be perhaps a little bit more technical, a little bit more defensive. But he's a guy that when you watch Deontay Wilder, you realize his offense is his defense. And you want to see that wild guy. You want to see the guy that comes in throwing those bombs and knocking
Yeah,
out
you
his
were. Yeah.
opponent. And there was something about that I didn't see that night.
He looked in shape. He looked like, I mean, you were there, but from what I saw, he looked like he got himself and he looked pretty chiseled. He looked big. But like you said, I mean, he was being too hesitant. He was waiting too much with that right hand. I think if he would have been a little bit more busier, throw more jabs to really prepare that big right hand, throw more big right hands. Maybe he would have gotten him out of there like in spectacular fashion, because that's what people want to see. But then again, it's hard when you fight a guy that's just in there not really trying to fight. He's just trying to go the rounds, and I think that's what his opponent Herndon was doing. But like I said, he got the work in. He got the fight. He got the rounds that he probably wanted, and it's good enough for him to move on with his boxing career.
As you mentioned, he came in phenomenal shape. He put on a
Yeah,
lot of muscle. It's one of those things that I had never been in the same room with Deontay Wilder. Dude, when the guy walks in, he takes over a room. He's tall, he's broad-shouldered, and he was kind of like a lanky strong before. I
right.
would say he put on a good 10 pounds of muscle or so. And he
Yeah.
looked very impressive, very intimidating. It almost makes it even more impressive the fact that guys like Zhang and guys like Tyson Fury were able to take him out.
But let me ask you something. You said he takes over. He looked in shape and stuff. But is he really there in his mind? Is mindful? Like his mind, he might be physically, looks ready, but is he mentally ready to take that step again and fight world caliber fighters?
That's a good point because we were in the fighter meetings and we were talking to him. He's a guy that if you ask him a question, you better be prepared to get like a 10-15 minute answer. And it's
Right.
an answer that is not, it's not a technical answer. Hold on a second. I got dogs jumping off of me. It's not a technical answer.
Yeah.
It's very philosophical. It's very deep. Sometimes it's not as deep of an answer as he thinks it is. He's one of those
Right.
guys that almost preaches to you and he thinks that everything that's coming out of his mouth is something that you should write down, which a lot of it is just, motivational mumbo jumbo.
Right.
But yeah, he does seem like a guy that there's a lot of emotions going on. I know he's gone through a lot of stuff personally.
Right.
And
That's
he's a
why I
guy
was
who said,
saying that if he's
yeah,
there.
he said this wasn't a comeback. This was a return. As you mentioned, they had the right guy in front of him. A guy that, let's be honest, he had lost against lesser opposition and lost
He,
badly.
he got knocked out by
Um,
Richard Torres in 4 rounds, so he was obviously, Richard Torres, the Olympic guy that's barely coming up. I mean, knocked him out in 4 rounds, so that tells you what kind of opponent he was.
yeah, and he's a guy who's 39 years old. I was talking to part of his team. I saw him at the airport, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what's next?" And the guy said, "Hey, we've got to step it up because he is 39. He's not young anymore. Is the most logical matchup the fight uh, with Joshua, a big
I
fight
think
in
so.
Europe, and cash out."
Yeah, I think that's the fight they're shooting for. I mean, that like I said at the beginning, remember there was so much hype about him and Joshua fighting each other, but for whatever reason, the fight never happened. And I truly believe that fight's going to happen in 2026. Obviously the winner will keep moving up in the heavyweight division, making more paydays. But I think both fighters, Lupina, I think they've seen their better days, man. I think they still have the big names, Anthony Joshua and Wilder. And if they could fight each other and make them payday, why not? I mean, that's what boxing is about. It's also a business, and I think it's a fight that people will buy, and I think it would sell. And let's see what happens.
Speaking of better days, Saturday night, Anaheim, California. It was Chavez Jr. facing off against the one and only, the social media superstar, now turned boxing disruptor, Jake Paul. He goes the distance, gets a very lopsided decision against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Now, there was a lot of talk. I know you said you even got into a little bit of a discussion with some of your friends and family who were saying, "Oh, this fight was fixed. This fight was this. This fight was that." You had a very interesting observation. You
Yeah.
compared what you saw from Chavez Jr. with some of the things that you felt personally later on in your career. He is 39 years old. It's hard to believe he's 39, man. I remember announcing
Yeah,
him when he was
me
17,
too.
18,
I remember when
on
I
the
saw him
undercard.
as a little kid, man. He was like Liam's age
Yeah.
with his dad.
Yeah, when they were
Yeah,
sparring, he was sparring Jorge Paez Jr. like in somewhere in Mexico, and I
yeah.
believe the guy is 39. What did you see? What could you gauge from this? Was it just a matter of just really, really good matchmaking here?
I think so. I think I mean, Jake Paul. They carefully choose his opponents. I mean, Mike Tyson. I mean, way over. The prime Mike Tyson. But 62 years old. Chavez has been through a lot in his life. I mean, look. With the whole drug and alcohol abuse for years, you saw he wasn't there fit right physically and mentally. That takes a lot of toll on your body. The guy hadn't been active. He hadn't fought in a year. And he didn't really fight a boxer. He fought like a mixed martial arts guy. And he only went 6 rounds. And before that, I think he had fought like in 2.5 years. So a lot of inactivity. He had been active. He's 39 years of age. People like I'm going back to this, Lupina, how people say, oh, they got paid off not to throw the fight or to lose the fight. You don't think Chavez wanted to win that fight because he knows if he won that fight, he would get another payday. He'd probably get a rematch with Jake Paul. So, I get tired of hearing people saying, oh, they paid him off not to throw any punches. No, like, look, he's 39 years old. His reflexes are not there. Like your mind, when you get older, your mind is telling you, look, I got to do this, but your twitches, your movement, your footwork is not the same, man. And Jake Paul is a young guy. He's 28. He was jabbing and moving. His footwork was good. He was giving him a lot of movement, and Chavez just couldn't catch him. He caught him in the later rounds, maybe like the ninth round. You know, Jake had been moving around for what, eight rounds. So he was a little bit winded, and Chavez had an okay round in the ninth round. Let some punches go. Finally, was able to catch him, but nothing huge. He might have won that round. Round 10, he had some moments like he fought in spurts. I still don't think he won the last round. I mean, Jake Paul dominated that fight. He won 9 out of 10 rounds. But if Hey, look, if Chavez wants to continue to fight, that's his deal. That's something he's gonna have to deal with, man. Him thinking that he won 3, 4, 5 rounds, that he said I fought a guy that he didn't knock me out. I mean, come on, guy. Like, Chavez has been fighting all his life, Lupina. Jake Paul's only been fighting 5 years, so of course he's not supposed to knock you out, man. I mean, even though you're way past your prime, but you're strong enough, got the experience to be able to survive. But like Chavez, he still wants to fight Lupe.
I saw a guy in Chavez who he looked to be holding back early on, not because he got paid off or he was trying to let Jake survive. He was a
Yeah.
guy who wasn't confident in his stamina. He was a guy who didn't think he could pour it on and make it the full distance of the fight.
Hey,
And the
listen.
fact that he did come on strong late, that lets me know that this guy was trying. He just left whatever he had for the end, and it wasn't enough.
See, like I respect that. You got your opinion. You felt like he was scared to get tired, but look, he was in a training camp. I mean, when you're supposed to have a full training camp, have confidence in your conditioning. I'm sure he did a lot of sparring. For the hot, from what I see, like he was hitting the heavy bag. He was throwing a lot of punches. He was doing his rounds in sparring. So you should have confidence in that. And I kind of get your point. Him thinking that, look, I'm gonna get tired. But I don't think it was that. I'm telling you, it was his age and all the wear and tear in his body, all the drugs he's consumed, all the alcohol, all the mental issues he went through. Even way back when he was young, stuff that he's gone through with his father that he's seen. I mean, the kid has had his mental problems too, Lupina. So it's a mixture of a lot of stuff. I just honestly, I just think he couldn't pull the trigger, man. He wanted to throw, but he couldn't. He wasn't in balance. He felt like if he was to throw, he was going to fall off balance and he was going to get countered. He said, "Let me just." He kept his hands up very well. I mean, he blocked a lot of those shots, but a lot of those shots were doing damage. If you saw his face at the end of the fight, he was pretty banged up on his forehead and his eyes and his nose and all that. So I think he took a beating, man. Uh, I'm not saying he got hurt, but I mean, Jake Paul tattooed him for a good 8, 9 rounds out of the 10 rounds. That's the way I saw the fight.
Unfortunately, we know with boxing, the Chavez Jr. carries a lot of weight. So more than likely, he's going to get opportunity. Somebody else is going to offer him some
Got the
money,
name,
and
the name,
yeah, and
bro.
he's gonna win again. So we know what may happen there. More
Right.
importantly, what happens with Jake now? He's a guy that I know that the people that follow Jake get excited. I know even your kid was like, "Oh, Jake was fighting," So
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
that's the audience that he's catering to.
Right.
They don't know the difference between this level of boxing and any other level of boxing. They just see two guys with gloves on that are going at it. It does seem though that some of the interest is waning. That people are starting to catch on to the fact that the guys he's fighting are either really well past their prime, or they're MMA guys that stand up is not their strong point. What happens with Jake if you're managing his career? What do you do?
I think I think he's learning. I think he's gotten a lot better from the beginning. I covered a couple of his fights. Like I've always said, man, I respect him because he puts in the work, the time. The training camp, the run in, the sparring partners. He hires the right trainers. So he wants to learn and he's showing that he's learning. He called out Zurdo Ramirez. He called out Baru Jack. He called out AJ. He called out Tank Davis. He called out Tommy Fury, which hey, that would be a good fight. He lost to Tommy Fury by split decision, maybe like 2.5 years ago. I think that Jake has improved a lot. He has gotten a lot better. I wouldn't mind seeing a fight. After this big Chavez win, get a fight with Tommy Fury. Get revenge and then go from there. If I was managing him, that's the fight that I would go for. Before stepping it up again with a real live dog fighter. That's what I would do.
Speaking of on the undercard, you spoke of him. El Zurdo Ramirez
Yeah.
took on Uniel Dorticos and, had a nice little convincing win.
Hmm.
You had a guy in Dorticos who obviously he's a fighter who he's had some wars. He
Yeah.
fought Gassiev and really went toe to toe, fight of the year type candidate. It seems like that really took a lot out of him. And he's also a guy that once he does take that step up in competition, he tends to kind of hit his mark, hit his level, and that's about as good as you're going to get. What did you see?
Well, Dorticos, like you said, he's an experienced fighter, 39 years of age, Cubano. He showed his experience. I mean, I don't know if I saw the fight with Zurdo Ramirez. It was kind of like a back and forth fight, Lupina, for about 5 rounds. I think Dorticos won some rounds. He showed his strength, his power. He was trying to, overpower him and push him back. But I want to say around the fifth, sixth round, and Zurdo Ramirez kind of took over. He landed the cleaner shots, and even more down the stretch, Dorticos just got tired. He got warned for a lot of low blows. That's probably why he was throwing low blows, trying to kill time. They took a point out for him in the 10th round for low blows, and at the end, it was Zurdo's his experience, his conditioning, and him just being a younger, hungry fighter, wanting to show that he is the best in that weight division, took over, and it was a good work for Zurdo, and it was a big win for him.
Obviously the Jake camp threw Zurdo's name around a little bit.
Yeah,
That's not going to happen. He's nowhere near ready to face somebody of that level and at that
right.
size. I mean, Zurdo's a big old Mexican. He's like about 6'4". He's thick, he's big, he's got really good boxing skills, really good movement. One name that did come up though was Jaya Pataya, who is the champion holding some of the other belts that Zurdo doesn't have. If those two guys get together, what do you see there? Obviously, it would be a big step up in competition for Apataya, who's been fighting, down in
Man,
Australia. He's been knocking
yeah.
people out. But as you mentioned, he knocked out some Italian dude who we've never heard of. Fighting Zurdo is a whole nother animal.
It is. It is. I would like to see that fight. It'll be an interesting fight. I really haven't sat down to analyze it, but from what I see, it's a big fight for both because Bataya has got that other belt. So basically they would be pretty much unifying that division. And Zurdo wants that belt, and Bataya wants. Zurdo has two belts, so that would they're trying to fight for three belts. So. Um, Pataya he's a young hungry fighter too. He wants to show that he's the best in that weight division. Man, I really don't know who would win that fight. I think it's a pick-up fight, man. I think it's a pick-up fight. It's very evenly matched, and hopefully that fight happens because it's a fight that I think the fans want to see, and it'll be huge. Bataya is a big draw in Australia, and you got Zurdo with the Mexican fans, and I think it'll be a great fight to hopefully it's made.
If anybody stole the show on the undercard, it was Floyd Schofield, man. He was a guy
Oh,
that
yeah.
had received a lot of criticism with what happened in the Shakur Stevenson fight, but he went up against a very rugged, well-respected Tevin Farmer, and he blew him out in one round. I was extremely impressed with what I saw. He was a
Oh,
guy, as we mentioned, he was kind of the laughing stock of the boxing world there for a little while because he went over to Saudi Arabia. They were claiming they had gotten poisoned. They had that infamous picture when he's in the hospital and he's like all laid out. He's got, the
right.
tubes and
Good
and then
acting.
to
Good
come
acting
back,
right
yeah,
there.
good act. It was acting. I don't know if it was good, but it was acting.
Right.
Uh, and to come back from that and put on this type of performance when to be honest with you, people were kind of scoffing at Kid Austin, and he put on a hell of a show against a quality opponent.
Yeah, he definitely did, man. He showed up. Tevin Farmer, we saw him twice with El Camarón Cepeda, and then we saw him with Murataya. In fight, he went the distance with both. He gave them all they could handle. You know, and Schofield, he showed up, man. He was fast and explosive. People might want to say that Farmer, didn't warm up right. He just wasn't ready. He was not ready for that kind of performance by Schofield. Like he started fast with his combination punching, with his power. He showed that he wanted it. Especially after what happened when he pulled out of the Shakur Stevenson fight, And Farmer's a guy that doesn't really get knocked out. I think the last time he got knocked out was like in 2012. So yeah, I think he put a big statement, man, and I'm happy for him. That's what he needed to do after he pulled out of the Shakur Stevenson fight, and now he's in line for the bigger names after that performance. I believe so.
Yeah, he called out a lot of guys out there. I think he's kind of on the a redemption tour at this point. Obviously, like we said, what happened in Saudi Arabia was very embarrassing. It was a huge payday. It was a tremendous opportunity. It all kind
Yeah.
of just collapsed in front of him. But where would you like to see him go? Who would you like to see him face next, and kind
I
of
mean,
capitalize off what he has going on right now?
hey, listen, if Shakur Stevenson takes care of Camarón Cepeda, that fight's coming up here pretty soon. I think he should be able to get that fight. It was gonna be. I mean, it was made already. It was supposed to happen in February. So I think that's a fight I would love to see him fight against. Tank Davis, that's another. I think he's pretty. He's there. He's ranked. Where Tank Davis, he's the champion. I think he's like number one or two. Floyd Schofield. That's another fight. He's there. I think he deserves either one of those fights. Most likely, I think the Shakur Stevenson fight would be the easiest fight to be made.
We move on to the co-feature. One of the guys that kind of made a name for himself this weekend as well. If it's more for the hardcore fans, Christian Solid Mbili fought in Quebec. He fought Masa Shuleki, who's a guy that a C plus type fighter who every time he takes a step up, he's had some significant losses. He's fought some top level opposition. He fought
Yeah,
Diego Pacheco. He fought Demetrius Andrade. He fought Danny Jacobs. It didn't go well each time that he fought those guys.
but he
But
beat Rosado. He
Billy,
beat Rosado.
yeah, he beat
Yeah,
Rosado, who's a legitimate name, a legitimate fighter at that division. Uh, Obviously, and Billy is a guy that nobody in the super middleweight division really wants to mess with because of the fact that he's a high risk, low reward type fighter.
exactly, exactly.
Nobody, he's muscular. He's a fighter who's originally from Cameroon, now lives in Quebec and is very popular out there in Canada. But he's a guy that he's just too dangerous. He's not a guy that Canelo's not going to mess with him. Possibly a Benavides. Maybe he's more on the Berlanga Shiraz type level. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he needs one of those names. He's I mean, the guy's knocked out four of his last five opponents. The only guy that he knocked out was Derevenchenko, but nobody. Derevenchenko's been in there with the best, and nobody knocks out Derevenchenko. And he needs that marquee name, Lupina, like you said, maybe Berlanga, or Berlanga would be perfect if he beats a guy like Berlanga. He needs that name guy in order to get those bigger names, the super big names, like you say, Benavides, to want to fight him. That's the only way it's gonna happen because the guy's he's big, he's strong, he comes to fight. He look what he did with Suleski, knocked him out in one round. Suleski had been the distance with a lot of name guys, like you said, Andrade, Danny Jacobs. Still he went 6 rounds with Pacheco. You know what? Even Pacheco. At one point, and Billy was going to fight Pacheco. I don't know what happened with the negotiations with that, but being a guy like Pacheco, him and Pacheco, the winners should be able to get a bigger name fight. So it's going to be one of those fights where he needs to really make a statement, like how he's been doing. Like he knocked out Sulecki, a guy that's gone rounds with a lot of name guys, but he needs that bigger name, that bigger market name to be able to get those big fights.
Yeah, he's essentially been a big fish in a small pond. Like I said, he's similar to those guys that are big in the UK. He's big in the Quebec region. He fought on one of our shows early on. He was on the Ring City, USA. He fought in one of the shows we did on the military base. And you're right. He's a guy that at some point he's going to have to come out of his safety zone out there in Quebec, and he's going
Yeah.
to have to fight another one of these young guns to prove who is the next guy up, who is the next dude that's for real. Because the big guys are not going to mess with him. They're like I said,
Why
he's
would
just too
they?
dangerous. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just too dangerous. He's a big guy, strong guy, volume puncher. But that's a name to look out for. Look for Christian Solid Empili. I get to use my
And
ninth
B,
grade French. Yeah, that was one of my
I'll
favorite
leave that
things to
up
do
to
with the
you,
French.
man. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite things to do with the French fighters. I would come up to him, I would say, "Bonjour, mon crayon c'est très
Oh,
petit."
wow. A la
You know what
madre.
that
God
means?
damn.
That means
Bonjour.
hello.
Hello. Hello.
It means hello. My pencil is very small. But
Oh, wow.
that was my greeting for these guys.
Which is
Another thing
true.
that came up this week, coming from the mouthpiece for Turkey Alashik, it was the rumored fight. Brian Norman Jr. And Devin Haney is supposedly being rumored for a Riyadh season somewhere in Saudi Arabia. I was surprised that Haney would want that smoke from Norman Jr. He's another guy
Yeah,
who's big
exactly.
risk, low reward, and especially he has that one weapon that we've seen that Devin Haney has trouble with, and that's a big left hook.
Yeah, and you know what? That like Norman Jr. I said it in the last podcast. He needs a big name. Like those big name guys are not gonna fight him until he fights a guy like Devin Haney. So now, from what I hear, I think that fight is they're both agreed on terms. From what I hear, Lupina, in November. That's a hell of an opportunity for Norman Jr. after he came back off that spectacular knockout win in Japan when he knocked out Sasaki in 5 rounds. uh, Now he has a chance to really show what he's made out of. I think he's catching Haney at the right time, Lupe. I think Haney, we saw him in the last fight with Ramirez. The guy doesn't move, Lupina. He literally runs in circles for rounds. I feel like he's gun shy. I feel he's scared to get hit. I think the moment that Norman lands that big left, but any punch, any big punches with power, Haney's gonna be running like he's gonna be running like crazy. So it's up to Norman to be able to deal with that and with the holding and keep working the body, keep working the arms, and not get frustrated with a guy like Haney. I think that's a hell of a fight for him. That's a hell of an opportunity. I think being a guy like Haney, then we'll put him in with the big names, with Ryan Garcia, with Roly Poly, with Teofimo, and good for him. I hope that fight happens.
It's still very early, as we said. It's just rumored at this particular point. Look, Maxi's making a guest appearance because he's been a big old sissy because there's thunder in the background. But anyway, no, I have to commend Haney for even taking the challenge.
Yeah,
It's a guy that he's got conditioning. He's a strong dude. He's a big 147 guy. He's a guy who looks physically like he could even probably sooner or later jump up to 154. So I
right.
commend him for taking this particular fight. I think it's still very early. I don't know that it actually ever comes to fruition, but definitely it's a fight that I want to see. And I think it would be big for Norman if he were to win this fight. As you said, it catapults him to the next level. And
Yeah,
he's also a dude with a tremendous personality. If you've seen his interviews, he's a guy
right.
that you just like. He
Yeah.
said he calls himself a country boy. He's like, I'm a country boy from Georgia who likes to fight, and that's exactly what he brings, and that's what he shows.
Yeah, plus the other thing that I forgot, I mean, Turkey was talking about putting them in a small ring, a 16 by 16 ring. So
Oh
that
wow.
would help a lot. So if Devin Haney agrees to that, which I don't know, I mean, he is trying to become a champion in 3 different weight divisions. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. But I would love to see that fight, especially in a smaller ring. Hey, look, that takes a lot. When you fight in that small ring, you take one step back, 2 steps back, you're on the ropes, man. So you got to fight.
And that takes us to my favorite part of the podcast, the part where we like to play around with all sorts of topics. As we mentioned, Raul is very limited on the things that he likes to talk about. He likes to talk about sex, boxing, Raul Marquez, and I got a subject here, Diamante. One of the four that you like to talk about. We're going to talk about money issues. It it
Money.
it kind of yeah, it kind of crosses some of the
Okay.
borders. It goes between relationships, but they're all basis. All the basis for these questions are money, and we're going to call this segment
Money
"Money
moves. Oh
Moves."
man.
So
Okay.
I've looked up some questions that where people were talking about some issues that they're having both in their personal life and regarding money. And
Uh-huh.
I want to see what your opinion is. I know most, I know what most of your answers are going to be because you're super cheap. So it's probably going to be no on almost all of them.
Hey,
But
listen.
but
Remember, I have what I have because I don't not. It doesn't mean I'm cheap, Lupin. It means I watch my money. That's
you
what it's
do watch your
called.
money.
Have you been in my
Here,
house
here
lately? I mean, have you seen my vehicles? I mean, I
I've
drive
seen
nice
it. This
vehicles. I have a nice
this is
house. I
where
live in a nice neighborhood. I'm
this is
not a
where
sissy like your
my
dog
money
is.
has been going. My money has been going for the last few months. It was we're close to $4,000 on this free dog. This dog was supposed to
Man,
be free,
cada quien,
and
bro. Like me, like when you
with
tell me
all
that, like,
yeah,
why would you spend $4,000 on un perro, way?
because
Let him
he's my little
go.
doggy.
Drop him
He's my
off
little
over there. Hey,
puppy.
drop him off over there in the hood, bro.
He wouldn't last 10 minutes in the hood. But anyway, here goes our first question. The first question is: a friend of mine is not doing well financially. He has not asked me for help, but he keeps dropping big hints. What should I do? You know, there's a show that I like to watch called Judge Mathis. It's like a show. And when people ask you for money indirectly, he calls it dry begging. Where they're like, oh man, that bill that just came in, and things aren't going well, blah blah
Oh,
blah,
yeah.
kind of dropping hints. That's when there's
Right.
a saying we say in Spanish. We just go, no, pues está cabrón.
Yeah,
Times are
pues,
tough. Times are
yeah,
tough everywhere.
pues, I mean,
What would you do, Diamante? What would you do if your friend, he's in financial straits,
right.
but he hasn't asked you directly? I think the worst thing you can do is offer.
Nah, look, I got two little kids that I'm raising and my wife. I got my own bills, personal bills. I Liam right now with baseball. Hey, like I mean, I can't. I got a lot of bills I have to pay. I wouldn't, Lupina. It's not
I,
in my
I think
budget.
the I think the
Maybe in
problem
your
is
budget. Hey, you maybe in
no,
your
no. You
budget.
you saw my budget. You saw where my budget is going. I got this little dog right here. I think the issue happens that a lot of people, when you offer to give them money, they think that it's a gift. If they didn't ask you directly for it and you just say, hey, man, why don't I let you, borrow this type of money? The fact that you offered kind of muddies the waters a little bit, and they think that you are volunteering. So if you're volunteering, it's coming from your heart. And if it's coming from your heart, you don't expect to get paid back. And I think that's where the issue arises a lot of times, is the fact that they say, no, man, well, you offered. Well, yeah, I offered because you were the one telling me that you were having problems. Have you come across that problem where the guy is like, well, you said you would let me borrow it. I never asked you for it.
Honestly, no. I never had anybody ask me to borrow money. I never been in a situation. Thank God. Like no, no. I never. Even you, Lupe, like as a friend, you never. You're the one that's making the checks, the big checks every. You working every weekend, man. Doing 8 shows in 1 month. Come on, bro.
I,
How do you
I
do
can't
eight
I
shows in
can't
1 month?
I can't even get my free
I'm the one
lunch
that. Hey,
that I
I'm the one
want.
that's gonna be asking you for money. I said, man, you know what,
Yeah,
man?
pretty
Times are
soon I'm gonna
hard.
be like, you know what I'm gonna
Hey,
say? I'm
Liam's
gonna say,
baseball is getting expensive. We need, we
no,
need it.
hombre, pues está
I
cabrón.
got it wrong. Hey,
Está
and that
cabrón.
I gotta take it, man. I gotta take it.
So the answer is no. Don't volunteer to
I
give them
wouldn't.
the money.
I wouldn't.
Question number two: I have saved about $20,000. I'm debating whether I should put it down on the down payment for a house, or I should start a business. Which one should I do? Um,
Wow. Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that when they start a business, they think that the business is automatically going to be successful. Now,
Right.
coming from two people like you and I, we're both self-employed.
Yeah.
We're people that, even though money is coming in, we never know when money is going to stop, and that's what we've always said. Plan ahead, save for those rainy days. Obviously, when 2020 came around, the pandemic came around. We were both in an okay situation because of the fact we
Yeah.
don't drive big fancy cars. We
Right.
have nice houses, but they're houses that we can afford. They're not super mansions that I mean, we've run across some people in the industry who have told us, I got into $1 million home when things were going good, and then when it stopped, now I'm stuck with $1 million home that I can't
Because
afford.
the money's not
What
coming
would you?
in.
Yeah, because the money stops, the money
Yeah.
doesn't come in. What would you recommend to him? I know there's a lot of cachet to say that you're a business owner. Those guys that say, "Well, I'm a CEO." No, you're not a CEO, man. You're just one guy with a little company. A CEO
Right.
has multiple people, and I know it sounds cool to say that you're a business owner, but if you've got a solid 9 to 5 job, and I think real estate is always a good investment.
Yeah, I think I would prefer I would tell them to buy a house, put the down payment on the house, and it depends on what kind of house too. Make sure you're gonna be able to afford, the mortgage on the house, and not only just the mortgage. The house takes maintenance too. Like who's gonna cut the grass, the yard work. Like the electricity bill. The bigger the house is, the bigger electricity bill you're gonna get, water bill, all that, and the taxes, the area that you're gonna buy the house in. If you buy it in an area like where I'm at, the taxes are going to be higher. If you buy it in an okay place, like you got to figure out where you're going to buy the house
Like
at.
where I'm at,
No, no, no. You're in a good spot, but you still got to pay taxes. You got to pay taxes on a house. So my thing is buy a house because it's real estate, Lupin, and through the years is gonna. it's gonna be worth more, but it's important that you're able to afford the mortgage and the maintenance to be able to keep up with the house too. Like you don't want to be the house broken and I can't go do the baseball stuff with Liam, or I can't go out to eat because the mortgage is too high and I can't afford living in this house. So like you
Yeah, I
said,
think
like
you have to keep in mind some of those additional factors. What is your insurance going to be? Also,
that
I
too.
know on one of your properties, the HOA can be a problem.
That you're
HOA can
right.
all of a sudden decide they're going to up the HOA bill by
I'm having
God
that
knows how many
problem with
times, how many multiples.
with the townhomes the townhome that I rent out. Actually, that it got resolved. They finally lowered the HOA, but at one point it was like crazy high, Lupe, and you're thinking, what are they doing for that kind of money? So
Yeah, some of the
that's
HOA bills can be as much as your rent. It can double your rent. Also,
yeah,
another thing too, if you're buying a house, if you're buying a new build, like they built it from the ground up, one thing you need to keep in mind is the first year's taxes, they're charging you based on an empty lot. Once the house is built, they reassess the taxes for the next year.
yeah,
So your mortgage goes up a lot higher. You're paying higher taxes. So it's stuff that you gotta
man.
you gotta really think about.
Hey,
The fact that you can buy it doesn't mean you can afford it.
I'm impressed, Lupina. I
Thank you,
taught
man.
you
Thank you.
well. I taught you well, man. I
You have
taught.
taught me well. Question number 3. I loaned a friend some money. They promised to pay me back in six
oh,
months, and they failed to do so. However, I see them on social media going to a
oh my
destination wedding.
God,
I feel disrespected.
damn,
I know what
Lupina.
your reaction would be here.
Man, it's like, dude, I mean, where's my money? I would tell him straight out, dude, you could afford to go on, you're going on a cruise, you're going to Playa del Carmen, you go wherever the crap they're going. Give me my money first. You owe me money. I'm a straightforward guy, but you know that I would be asking for my money. That's what I would do.
Well, I think the person does have a right to feel disrespected because if they came to you, obviously when people come to you and they're in a tough financial situation, te van a llorar, they're going to cry to you, they're going to tell you, oh man, I'm going to pay you back, I'll get a second job if I have to,
Yeah.
I'll sell my car if I have to pay you. But then once that scare goes away and the situation gets resolved, attitudes change. And the fact that you're not a bank, you're not a credit card, you're just a friend, and especially if you're a friend that's doing well financially, they're going to say, oh, he doesn't need it.
Oh, you don't. I hate that. I hate that. Oh,
Yeah.
you don't
Oh,
need
he
them.
can
It
wait.
happens a lot. I mean, it happens here. Oh, you don't really need the money. Everybody needs the money, bro.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you're the one who ends up being money hungry. My advice would be
Yeah.
try to stay away from dealing with money situations with friends because it always does complicate things. And
Yeah.
you also, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, looking at your social media. And I'd rather be happy for you that you're on a vacation than be saying, man, this dude owes me, $1,500, $2,000,
Yeah.
and he's hanging out in Cancun or Playa del Carmen at a wedding. Because at that point, then what I'm doing is I'm providing welfare for you. I'm subsidizing your life because
And then,
the money I
yeah.
sacrificed not to go on vacation, now you're the one using it to have a good time with it.
Yeah. And then they get mad, Lupe. They get mad because you're asking them for, like, hey, I let you borrow that money. You're over here having fun with that or whatever you did with it, but you're still having fun. I see on social media and you can't even pay it back. So you I mean you lose relationships like that too, friendships because of that. And it happens a lot.
Here's my favorite question, Diamante. It says, my cousin is throwing a quinceañera for her daughter. She asked me to be a madrina, a sponsor, but not for what I could afford. Instead, they're offering sponsor packages, bronze, silver, and gold,
That's a good
500,
man.
1,000, and 2,000. And get this, you are going to be seated according to what you
Oh
donated.
my God, that's crazy, dude.
This is too much. This
That's
is
a
too much.
lot.
That's our comment.
I never heard that one. That you're giving people is that I mean, obviously you got it somewhere so that you're giving people ideas now, Lupina.
Well, people are getting these crazy ideas. And look,
Yeah.
you guys need to stop watching these reality shows of the Real Housewives of this, Real
All
Housewives of
fake,
that.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're doing
They're
weddings where they're
acting. I
doing
mean, they
where they're
want
wearing like
followers.
three different dresses. You
Right.
know, if you can't afford it, there's no reason to be putting on these types of parties. I mean,
Yeah,
we've,
exactly.
my sister had a quinceañera. I'm sure your sister did as well.
Yeah, yeah,
And we do what's called, padrinos and madrinos, which are like
yeah.
the sponsors of, somebody will chip in for the band, somebody will chip in for the hall, but they were all very modest type situations. It would be like at the Knights of Columbus or some empty little bar somewhere that their friend would help them loan them out. They weren't doing these massive quinceañeras the way they're doing now. I went to one where the girl had 3 dresses. She
Man,
changed dresses throughout the night. There was
were
the
you the
big
sponsor
flowy
for the
dress.
dresses? Were you a
I
sponsor for
was
the
not.
dresses?
I was just invited. I was just invited.
Right,
Of course,
right.
I always get asked to introduce the court. So I go on there and do my
Oh, there
thing
you
for the
go.
court.
Like you
So
did at my
that's
wedding.
my
Like you did at my wedding.
yeah, exactly. That's my
Yeah.
contribution to the event. But yeah, I think sometimes these people are doing too much, man. Do stop seeing these things that you see on social media and stop trying to emulate it,
Yeah.
because you're putting off a lot of people that they're part of your family and they want to be involved in these events, and you're asking too much.
And not only that, I mean, with today's economy, the way the economy is, Lupina, nobody's there to be padrino for those packages. How much was it? Well, how much was the gold package and
It
the
was
silver?
500 for the bronze,
Yeah,
1,000 for the silver, 2,000 for the
dude, come
gold,
on, man. That like,
and then
I mean,
they're gonna seat you accordingly. So basically,
no
not
tienen
only are you
vergüenza, güey.
taking
No,
this,
no tienen
yeah, they have no
vergüenza,
shame.
bro.
They
Yeah,
have
no
no shame.
shame, baby, no shame.
Not only are they demanding this money from you, but at the event, you're gonna know who donated what, and I think people are gonna feel pressured
That's
to be in
ridiculous.
that particular setup. So yeah, so guys, stop doing this. Stop doing
Por
this. This
favor, yeah,
is
please. That's
embarrassing.
not right. That's not
Por
right, man.
favor.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, that covers the subject matters that Raul loves. He loves sex. He loves boxing. He loves himself, Raul Marquez, and he loves talking about money. This segment has been money
Money moves.
moves. Now, Diamante,
That was
I
a good
know that.
subject.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
I
I
enjoyed it.
know,
I enjoyed it, man. I
I know
really
my
did.
audience. I know who I'm talking to. I know I'm talking
There you
to
go.
Raul Marquez. I know how to deal with you. I know how to work with you. Thankfully, I am off this weekend. I know you've got a big weekend. It is another big baseball weekend.
The
Speaking of money,
state EMC, baby.
how much is this weekend? How much is this weekend costing you? Where are
I
you
don't know.
staying?
I don't even know, bro. I just, I know we got a room in Longview, Texas, and the
Wow.
EMC,
The Ritz Carlton
EMC.
Longview, Ritz Carlton, the
Nah,
Four
nah, just
Seasons
a nice
Longview.
Holiday Inn. We're happy with the Holiday Inn, man. Hey, but listen, 7U All Stars. We're trying to win the state title. After that, we're going to the World Series in Texarkana. And that's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's a lot of days in Texarkana. But
That's a lot
this
of money,
weekend
man.
for the July weekend, man, we're in Longview, Texas for the AMC 7U state title. We're trying to bring it back, man, with Liam Marquez.
You get to talk about your children. Let me talk about my kid. There's little Maxie. He's fully recovered from his surgery. Now we got a little problem with Bingo. Bingo's down there. Bingo
He's
has
got
a
a
problem
hole.
with his neck. He has a
Oh my God.
no, he doesn't have a hole. He has a compressed vertebrae. So last week we thought he was circling the drain, man. We thought it might have been time to say goodbye to him, but no, man, he pulled through. He made a rocky comeback. He made a rocky
Nice.
comeback, and he's still limping a little bit,
Where
but he's
is he? Let me
being
see. Let me
cool.
see him. Let me see him. Let me see
He's
him.
down there. I'd have to disconnect a whole bunch of stuff, but he's
Oh,
down there.
okay.
He's down there at the bottom.
Okay.
He's doing well. He's recovering. That does wrap up episode number 10. As we mentioned, it's difficult because we interact with other people who have successful podcasts, and when we look at
Yeah.
ours, you know what, Diamante, we would be one of those podcasts where we would get, if we were a movie, we would get critical acclaim,
Yeah.
but we do zero money at the box office.
I know. They're
People would be
watching it,
watching
bro.
it.
Trust me. They're
Yeah,
watching
they would
this.
be watching it like on Amazon or
Yeah.
Netflix, and they'd be telling all their friends about it. Except our people don't
Yeah.
tell their friends about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what would happen. So go to YouTube, go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts at Punchy Show. One word all together. You can look us up, like, and subscribe. This is number 10. Diamante, I feel it. Our numbers
Number 10.
are slowly inching up. They
Let's
keep
go.
increasing.
We're
We need
not
to get
giving
more
up, man.
subscribers. No, we're
We're
not
not
giving
giving
up.
up. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We're there. We're
Yeah.
there. We're there. We're in the
The
cusp.
corner.
The
Yeah, we're
cusp,
on the
baby.
cusp of greatness. On the
That's
cusp of
it.
greatness.
There we
So
go.
the corner might throw in the towel, but we will never quit. We're gonna bite down on our mouthpieces and just keep swinging like Maxi and Bingo. We're gonna make a rocky comeback like Bingo.
Let's go. I'm ready.
That concludes the official weigh-in. Raul Marquez has a future baseball star to go throw some balls in practice for this upcoming weekend. He has a hot young wife to satisfy and take care of. That
Let's
does
go.
conclude our podcast. This is Raul Marquez's Punchy with Lupe.